We're really excited. Thank you for having us to come tonight. We wanted to update you a little bit on the program and also show you some of the things that your patients will be learning in the groups, and with the double intention that, do I need a mic? Hello. With the double intention that you will be able to support graduates in kind of recalling some of the skills, as well as we chose some that you could even teach to people one-on-one in your offices. So the premises of our program is very practical, things that you can do. So we're going to start with, oh my love, hello. I'm actually going to put it down to start with the first skill, because I'm going to ask you to stand up, if you would, please. The first, can you hear me? If I can project. The first skill is opposite action. And so this, I'll just ask you to maybe adopt the posture and then I'll explain it to you a little bit. So putting your feet shoulder width apart and your hips sort of feeling secure and broad, putting your hands into fists and then placing those up on your hips. Shoulders back, your chest is a little bit raised, chin up. Wonder Woman posture, or Superman, as you will. So the idea, I'm just going to ask you to actually hold this posture while I tell you about it. The idea of these postures was developed by Amy Cuddy, who's a psychologist, was working at the Harvard Business School. In 2010, she was working on the hypothesis that your posture affects how confident you feel. So she had people for 2 minutes and then do something that was designed to make you feel stressed out. Give a presentation. And, and they measured people's confidence as well as their performance. And people who did the postures for 2 minutes beforehand felt more confident while doing the performance, as well as performed better. And I could go into more detail, but the whole idea about opposite action is like behavioral activation for depression or exposures for anxiety, is to recognize when an emotion is pushing you in a direction that isn't helpful and to actually do the opposite of it. So using postures is one of the ways that we teach that. And you've done a great job of holding it. Should I make them hold it for longer? Yeah, okay.
I'm talking for 3 minutes, so. Great. So I just wanted to give a little introduction to our project for those of you who have missed our launch. I want to introduce Mary. I don't think she needs much of an introduction because you're all family doctors and many of you have many Marys in your practice. She's one of the 29% of people in Victoria struggling with anxiety and depression, the most common chronic condition here. And as I think you are all so aware, Mary has many barriers to getting help. First, stigma. The stigma is described as more debilitating than the symptoms themselves of anxiety and depression in many ways. So Mary's feeling stuck and all alone. But luckily she's courageous and she does ask you for help. And as psychiatrists, we're very, very aware that you as family doctors do the bulk of mental health care. In fact, 80% of mental health care is actually in primary care. So as you're working with Mary, you eventually too feel stuck. And I usually give this slide to people who aren't family doctors, so I don't think I need to go over the obstacles of how hard it is to get mental health care for your patients. I think you are all very, very aware of this list.
And on that, I think that we can let our superheroes relax.
Because you are the superheroes here. So consequently, our aim for this project is to create a program that offers accessible and effective self-management training for patients with mild to moderate mental health problems in primary care. Basically, so both patients and doctors feel less stuck and less alone when managing mental health problems in the community. So we were very happy to have this new group medical visit code. I'm not sure how many of you are using that in your practice, but it's been very exciting for our work because it means that we can have 15 patients at a time for these sessions, which are 90 minutes long for 8 consecutive weeks. So each patient gets 12 hours of CBT skills. And these skills are actually a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance-based strategies. So mindfulness, acceptance and commitment therapy, and dialectical behavioral therapy, which is more distress tolerance therapy skills. These are at this time for adult patients suffering with mild to moderate anxiety and depression. And it's a collaborative facilitation. We start with a psychiatrist and a family physician co-facilitating, and as the family physicians become more confident, then there's solo facilitation. And this is the slide that we're most proud of, and thanks to all of you and your great referrals, we've actually treated almost 800 people in our first pilot year. So we're very happy with that. Our program at this point appears to be quite sustainable. We're training 3 new GPs. In the winter, we're going to have 23 new groups starting, so we're going to have at least 1,125 and continuing to grow as we move forward. We've realized that evidence shows that 8 weeks is often not enough. People need maintenance sessions or booster sessions or even sometimes a level 2. So we're experimenting at this time with how best to serve this follow-up need. Right now, we're having psychiatrists provide booster groups of 8-week series that are a little more in-depth with hands-on application and practice of skills. So we've had 77 people go through that. We're also looking at other ways to provide maintenance, whether it's once a month or every 2 months, or we've also just had success with people doing the level 1 many times, and they seem to be enriched each time they do it.
So back to Mary. Mary comes to see you and you make a referral. And I just wanted to thank the people who've given us some feedback on the referral form and let you know that we are working on improving it. At present, the maximum PHQ-9 score has moved from 14 to 18, so we can accept people with a little bit more severity of depression. We have set a cap there because it's quite cognitively demanding to do the group, and people with a higher load of depression often will get demoralized if they don't have the cognitive skills to do that. We do ask that patients have a home GP. We're not able to do risk assessment or safety planning, and so we also want to really ask you to check on your PHQ-9. Question 9 is about suicidality, so to check that before you refer them, because that is an exclusion criteria at this point, unless you feel confident that you can help manage any safety risk. And also email address, because a lot of the referrals actually do get kind of lost in la la land while we're waiting for email, because that's how we communicate with them. So you can really facilitate things that way. And lastly, just checking in with your patient about what their motivations are and whether they have that what we call an internal locus of control, recognition that they do contribute in part to their problems and that they can help in terms of how they're relating to things, they can have an impact on things. So people who, the problem is all out there don't do so well as people who, my doctor made me come, are often people that drop out. So that's something that you can help us with as well. We are really pleased that in January, we're able to offer groups throughout the day and even in the evenings. So this is a little draft of what we're going to be offering in January. So there's a number of basics groups and then also some of the level 2 groups. Time for another skill. So this is just some of the skills that we teach, but what I can go to the next slide. We teach about emotion regulation and how in high emotion you really can't think, so rational thinking as a skill isn't really available. And so using strategies of the body to physiologically regulate so that you can get back to that more rational place. And we call these the dial it down skills. We talked about these a little bit at the launch. Dunking your face is using a cold water stimulus to stimulate the dive reflex essentially and lower arousals, lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, and redirect blood to the brain where we want it. And so oftentimes people will do this with an ice pack on their face. Has anybody had patients do this or talk about it? Few nods. It's very effective during panic attacks, even during for insomnia, because all of these skills stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, and so they can help create a different milieu. And so holding an ice pack across the bridge of the nose, there are receptors here that connect with the vagus nerve. Holding the breath for 15 to 30 seconds is the dunk your face skill. And people who try it end up becoming emissaries because they really like it. And then I also wanted to teach and do as a group abdominal paced breathing. This is the skill that everybody walks around saying, oh, I tried using breathing. So let's do it together. Some of you may be familiar with it from your own work or yoga or singing or something, but if you wouldn't mind just putting your hands, a hand on your abdomen and a hand on your chest. Can be helpful to sort of make your posture symmetrical, and sometimes helpful to close your eyes or just lower your gaze so that you can pay attention inside your body. And take a deep breath in through the nose, and noticing if you can bring the air all the way down to your bottom hand And then exhale, you can exhale through the mouth or the nose. And feeling the abdomen actually move back towards the spine. So when you're breathing in, you're noticing that the bottom hand can move more than the top hand. So we're moving from the shallow chest breathing down to a deeper abdominal breath. And this does stimulate the vagus nerve and help stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, and sort of depressing that fight or flight response that people can be in. And the paced part is to actually exhale longer than you inhale. So if you can, when you're exhaling, just extend that by an extra second or two. Sometimes people find they feel hyperventilating, or they feel strange when they're trying to breathe, and it can be very helpful then to just start with an exhale. So breathe out all the way, all the air that you can, and then your next breath will be nice and deep. So now we have a much calmer group. So you can stop your abdominal paced breathing now, return to normal breathing. We'd like to tell you about some of the results that we've had so far.
So I'm lucky I get to officially start with doing abdominal paced breathing, but I don't know if it was good because I could feel my heart pound. But. So we're tracking results in terms of symptoms of depression and anxiety and of functioning. And there was a significant difference pre to post. So we saw a large effect size for symptoms and a moderate effect size for function. And what's exciting is that these results are comparable with results you get from one-to-one CBT training for your patients. So as far as patient satisfaction, get an overall score of 4.6 out of 5. And 96% of patients reported that their ability to manage their mental health symptoms had improved. 100% felt like they were welcome in the group. And 20% actually said that this was the most valuable aspect of the course. Now that's really significant in that the number of people who will initially show apprehension, voice apprehension that no way, I'm not doing group, I can't do groups aren't for me. So this is really something you could pass on to patients to let them know that they might appreciate the group much more than they actually thought, so to give it a try. 98% said that the workbook that we provide, that they intend to continue to use it. So a way that you can potentially support your patients after they've participated is perhaps asking them to bring the workbook in, highlight what they thought was helpful, and review it together.
Of note, our workbook largely reflects CBIS, so a lot of the material overlaps, so it should be quite familiar if you have taken CBIS.
So patient satisfaction, how has it made a difference for patients? Well, a lot of reports of having more objectivity, having simple tools to deal with their anxiety and their intense emotions, an increased sense of empowerment and capacity to feel that they can change their thoughts and behaviors and feelings, an increased ability to practice being more kind towards themselves, and a huge one is that realization that they're not alone. So next steps. So we're going to continue to offer the groups that we are currently. We're going to spread to special patient populations, so predominantly to youth, spread to other communities, and continue with our ongoing quality improvement.
So last skill, one of the CBT skills that we regularly use, come back over here, is good for me's, and that's the practice of giving yourself accurate credit for something that requires your time or energy or effort. And it's often a new habit for people to do that, and runs counter to what we call what is called the negativity bias, where we tend to notice more what hasn't worked out or what isn't going well much more than what is. And so I'm just going to ask you all to notice that coming here tonight required your time and your energy and your effort. So give yourself a good for me. Thank you.